Assalamu alaikum students. This is your ninth lecture on water supply and sanitary engineering. In this lecture, you will study about the sources of water and the modes of water supply. Now, first the sources of water supply. As you know, the water on earth undergoes the circulation from oceans to atmosphere to ground and again to oceans. This circulation is called hydrological cycle. Now, any source that is able to provide sufficient quantity of water to satisfy the needs of all the individuals living in the town or a city can be used for the water supply system. As I told you about the sources can be either surface source or subsurface sources of water. The surface sources are those sources which are available at ground surface. For example, lakes, ponds, streams, rivers, oceans, etc. And the subsurface sources are those sources of water which are below the surface of ground. For example, springs, wells, tube wells, etc. Now, the surface sources of water, these are lakes and ponds, streams and rivers, storage reservoir, oceans. First one is lakes and ponds. Now, how are the lakes formed? A natural depression is formed on the ground, and this depression formed is filled with water. The water comes from the catchment area. For example, if the rain falls on the catchment area, it's the area that drains to the common point. It's also called a drainage basin. For example, the rain falls on the catchment area, the water goes to the depression formed through streams and the lake is formed. Or the water in lake can also come from the groundwater through springs. The quantity and quality of water in lake depends upon the catchment area. Say for example, if the lake is available in the area where nobody lives, the water will be pure. Similarly, the pond. Now, what's the difference between a pond and a lake? A lake is formed naturally, and the pond is a man-made water body, and the pond is smaller than lake. So, for making a pond, the ground is dug and then filled with water. The pond water is less pure, and it can't be used for drinking. Now, the second one is streams, or we can say rivers. It is a natural channel in which the water is flowing and it gets water from the catchment area. That is the area where from the water drains to a common point. Rivers are most important sources of water supply. Now there is storage reservoir. What is a storage reservoir? It's the reservoir that we use to store the water when more than sufficient water is available, and this stored water is then used at the time of scarcity of water. So why do we use a storage reservoir? For example, dams. If we have the river as the best source of water, the answer is simple. The water in non-perennial rivers is not available throughout the year. During dry weather, there is very little water or even no water available in the river. So a dam, or we can say a storage reservoir, is made across the river so that the excess water at the time of wet weather is stored and then utilized during dry weather. And the oceans contain about 90 to 97% of total quantity of water on Earth. But the problem is that the water from ocean is salty and it can't be used as such for water supply system. So the ocean water is first desalinated, that is the salt is removed. Now how it is done you will study it in the next chapter in the purification processes. Now coming on to various underground or subsurface sources of water. A spring is the outflow of groundwater that occurs naturally and we can see it on the ground as a stream of flowing water. And wells, as you know, it's the vertical hole that is made by excavating the soil from the ground. It can be open well or tube well. The open wells have large diameters and are not so deep, but the tube wells, these have less diameter and can be either shallow or deep. Now, the modes of water supply, or we can say the systems of supply of water. There are two main water supply systems. These are continuous and intermittent system. In the continuous system of water supply, the water is supplied to consumers all the time. That is 24 hours a day. This system is ideal, but the only disadvantage is that water gets wasted due to the leakage. Now, in case of intermittent system, it's that system of water supply where the water is supplied for some fixed time or it's not supplied for 24 hours a day. Say the water can be supplied for 4 hours in the morning and 5 hours in the evening. An intermittent system is not the ideal system and it has got many drawbacks that are explained as first is fire demand. If there is a fire during the period when water is not supplied, it creates a great problem as the water can't be arranged for firefighting quickly. And the number of valves, large number of valves are required for working in case of intermittent system. The wastage of water. Now, the people may store large quantity of water for future and then throw it away if it is not used. Also, the taps remain open during a non-supply period, and then the wastage of water occurs during the supply period when water is available in the taps. The storage tanks are required in the houses that have more chance of being contaminated. It was all about the continuous and intermittent water supply system and about the sources of water. In the next lecture, you will study about the treatment process in water.